Broadcasting from the Tasman Lake Lodge Studios, this is Sporting Journal Radio. Presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. Now here's your host, Bret Amundson.
Welcome to the show that says you shouldn't have to apologize for living a healthy, sustainable life off the land. From hunting, fishing, trapping, and eating wild game, I hunt and always will. And the mission of this show is to keep the tradition of the outdoors alive and well forever. All right, so thank you for watching this. I'm Bret Amundson. Dan Amundson is over there. If you're watching this on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, whatever, make sure you hit the like, follow, subscribe button. If you like what you see here today, please continue to follow us and share this with your friends. And if you want to help us in our mission to show off your unflinching attitude towards the future of hunting and fishing, pick up a I Hunt and Always Will mug or hoodie now in our store at sportingjournalradio.com. There it is, the I Hunt mug and the I Hunt hoodie. We've got them in that brown color. We've got them in the orange color for upland hunters as well too. These are my favorite hoodies right now. Everyone that gets them really likes them. I can't stop wearing them. I love that sleeve right there with that tail feather on the sleeve. So check it out at sportingjournalradio.com. Sorry, Dan. All right, we've got a big show for you this week. The unofficial state bird is a focus of this weekend show, the ruffed grouse. Now, we're going to talk about reports, but not just reports of what's going on out there, but conservation efforts that have provided more habitat for ruffed grouse and the work that's been done to give you more places to hunt. Now, land access to me is one of the most important parts of hunter recruitment and retention. Without volunteers, without funding for this work, we will miss more and more. We will see more and more people disappear from the outdoor world. So we're going to talk about all of that and how you can become a better hunter in the woods and what you can do to create a world for our future generations that includes hunting and fishing. We'll also give you a migration report, a whitetail update, and share some cool footage and pics submitted by people like you. If you've got some neat pictures, some neat videos, send it to them. If we share them here on the show, we'll hook you up with maybe a hoodie like this or some swag from the Sporting Journal Radio store. So check it out at sportingjournalradio.com. All right, this week on the show, Ben Brettingen from OnX is going to join us, Matt Soberg from Covey Rise, and Jared Olafson with the Lake of the Woods chapter of the Ruffed Grouse Society are all going to talk about ruffed grouse. They've been in the woods chasing the birds around, and woodcock too. We'll find out how numbers have been. They've got some neat stories that they're going to share with us, and they'll be joining us in just a few minutes. But Dan Amundson, why don't you join the show and tell us who our sponsors are this week?
Yeah, this week's show is brought to us by Haybale Heights Campground and Resort on Devil's Lake. Plan a trip to Devil's Lake at haybaleheights.com. Ottertail Lakes Country. Find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com. Lake of the Woods Tourism. Plan a trip to Lake of the Woods at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. Tasman Lake Lodge. Plan a trip of a lifetime to catch giant lake trout and pike at tasmanlake.com. Our favorite app, OnX Hunt. Know where you stand with OnX. And Mid-Migration Outfitters. Come hunt geese out at the famous Loch Parle Refuge in heated pits and comfortable blinds. Learn more at midmigrationoutfitters.com. And our favorite TV show, Prairie Sportsman. Watch episodes anytime at prairiesportsman.org.
Well, we did some waterfowl hunting this week. Here's a waterfowl migration report for you. You know, some of the small ponds are starting to get some skim ice on them as temperatures have dropped into the 20s overnight. Some cool mornings out there, whether you were bow hunting or duck hunting. Got a little chilly there in the morning. Now, warmer temps are coming, so we shouldn't have frozen water, at least down here in the southern part of the region and our viewing audience here. Snow geese, divers, and lesser Canadas are starting to move south into the United States in some bigger numbers. We've seen some more mallards start to trickle down into our neck of the woods, but it's overall, this migration has been a slow trickle, but I have a feeling things are... November is my favorite time to waterfowl hunt, by the way. I get in arguments with people about this between October and November, and the very beginning of the waterfowl season is usually pretty good, and then October usually slows down for us. Now, I know, Dan, you spent time up around Bemidji in northern Minnesota, and I know you guys are a little bit different further north up there, but when you get further south, man, November is when it really happens. happens, and it's just starting to pick up where we're at. We've also been seeing small groups of new birds, Canada geese, kind of spinning around different, 3s and 4s, small flocks that have been bumping around from pond to pond. We watched some migrating flocks fly over and head south, whether they passed us over or whether that was some of our birds leaving. Hopefully not. Wednesday morning, I know it was kind of cold. You guys hunted, but the geese slept in on Wednesday morning, it sounded like.
Yeah, it felt like a December hunt. Kind of sucked, but that's the way it goes. And I'm guessing there was probably ice. The geese probably woke up and said, whoa, it's Christmas time, so we're only going to feed once today. And that's how she goes. You just got to plan for it.
That's the hard part. I mean, as much fun as it is in November, when I think waterfowl hunting gets better, it also gets less predictable and harder to pattern those birds. So geese, when it gets really cold, will go into either a real late morning feed or midday feed or just one feed per day. And sometimes it's that warmest part of the day, early to mid afternoon. So hopefully we're not there yet, but there are some 60-degree temps in the forecast this week. So I think we'll get back. I think we'll have 2-a-day feeds, of course. For a while yet, but you may have to plan for longer days in the field. Here is some footage from a recent hunt we did with Mid-Migration Outfitters on one of our migration pond sets. Oh yeah, get ready. Where are you? Just dragging that bird up.
Got him.
Look at her struggle with that bird, though. A little big for her.
No band. 8, 9, 11. There you go.
And some trumpeter swans put on a little show for us there at the end. So we had a good time out there with Mid-Migration Outfitters and got Tiny on some of her first real goose retrieves out there. She's had 1 or 2 prior to that, but she got more work than she has so far on those. So that was a lot of fun. If you want to learn more about booking a guided hunt with Mid-Migration Outfitters, go to midmigrationoutfitters.com. As far as the rut report goes, if you want to chase some deer, maybe you're going out there with guns this weekend, or if you've been bow hunting, you've seen the increased rut activity, the increased deer activity. Bucks are definitely on the move between the colder temperatures and the crops that have come down. I've seen a lot more deer around. Now, I sat just about every day in the last week and a half, and finally I had 3 bucks come through together, a couple of smaller ones, and then one that I didn't think was a shooter, and realistically, next year he'd be a real nice deer, but when he was going by me, I could have shot him when he was going by me, and then when he turned his head and he got past, he was chasing doe, he turned his head and got past, I was like, oh, he was real wide. This is what it looked like. So first we had our first snowfall, really, while I'm in the stand. The first snowfall of the year, obviously it didn't stick, but that got deer moving, and right away I had these 5 does come and just hang out underneath my stand for, I don't know, about 5 minutes. I filmed them underneath there, and they knew something weird. Like, you can see this big doe in front. Mama there was checking me out, and she was trying to figure out what was going on, but she wasn't weirded out enough to bust. She takes a little hop here and just kind of gets her distance. She knew something was going on, but never left. And she actually stopped right there and then hung out for quite a little bit longer. But this colder weather may have triggered not just some more deer activity, but maybe some romantic thoughts in our resident squirrels as I witnessed some of nature firsthand. I mean, that's something you don't see sitting on the couch, right? I watched these 3 squirrels come down the grove, and they were going up a tree, down a tree, and then all of a sudden those 2 got in it. Now, here's that buck. Now, look, he didn't look that big when he first comes onto that trail, right? You can see he looks, I'm like, he's not that big. And then all of a sudden his head starts to turn there, and I was like, oh, he's like short and wide, and his rack comes like forward more than it comes up. So here he is. There's the doe. He's kind of chasing this doe around outside the grove. And I was like, gosh, I don't know if I'm going to see this deer again. There he goes right there. And I was like, that's actually a pretty nice buck. I might have to take a crack at him. And then these 3 bucks just kind of hung around. So these 2 other bucks came down the trail right in front of me. It's getting later. This is an afternoon hunt. So I'm losing light. And I'm running out of daylight here and legal shooting time. But it was real neat to have these 3 around. And these 2 smaller ones, they kept an eye on that big buck the whole time. It was interesting to watch the dynamic between the 3 of them. And then if you listen close here, that buck is on the other side of that real thick brush there. He gets into it and starts thrashing it around. I wish I could have seen it there it is. It's kind of hard to hear on the video. It was way more dramatic when you're there in person. But yeah, now so here's the spy point footage of that 6-point that came through, and then after dark they went back in front of those cameras on their way out of the grove, and then there's the spike. So some definite increased activity among those deer out there. So if you haven't been hunting, get out there and do it. Of course, now that the gun season is going to open up, everything is going to change once again. But a pretty neat experience. And then if you are going to be hunting out there this weekend for the gun opener, here's a little tip for you this is a tip that I never listen to myself when I give this tip, Dan. And that is to sit as long as you can. I know, and it's supposed to be warm this weekend. So you have no real excuse. Bring a snack with you and stay out there, because what's going to end up happening is the guys that are going to go out there and sit in their stands, they're going to climb down about 9 o'clock, maybe 10 o'clock. That's going to bump deer around and get them moving again. So if you're in your stand between that 10 and 2 time, there's a good chance that you might see some other deer getting bumped around, because not only are guys climbing down, but they might climb down and then do some deer drives. Maybe some neighboring properties are going to be pushing some deer around. So if I can give you a tip, I would try to stay out there as long as you can, at least through lunchtime. And then if you do shoot a deer, and if you're one of those guys that plans on hanging it for a while, you should be careful, because temps are going to be in the 60s for a couple of days, depending on where you're listening to this anyway. Pretty warm temperatures. Unless you got a cooler to hang it in or some place where you can keep it cool, you want to make sure that you treat that meat. Nothing drives me crazy more than watching somebody that puts in the effort to kill a deer or a duck or a pheasant or whatever, and then just pays no attention to processing it properly. Think about it as food. That's something you're going to eat. You don't want that thing to be sitting next to your exhaust pipe on your tailgate for 6 hours. You don't want it baking in the sun in 60-degree heat. So make sure you have plans for processing that, since it's going to be a little bit warm. And the next week looks pretty nice for deer hunting. A little warm maybe, but generally fair to mild temperatures. And not a lot of rain. There's a little bit of rain maybe midweek across the region, but overall I think a lot of deer are going to get shot here this week. So get out there and enjoy it. Be safe, of course, and let us know how you do. Send us your pictures. We may feature them here, and if we do, we'll set you up with some free hoodies or hats or mugs from the Sporting Journal radio store. All right, when we come back, we're going to get you caught up with the latest hunting and fishing news from around the region, including new winter limits on Mille and Upper Red Lake. If you haven't heard yet, they've announced their ice fishing limits for Mille and Upper Red. Plus, we have a Lake of the Woods fishing report, and then we'll get into our discussion on this year's Ruffed Grouse season with Ben Brettingen from OnX Hunt, Matt Soberg with Covey Rise, and Jared Olafson with Lake of the Woods, chapter of the Ruffed Grouse Society. Stay there. Ice fishing season is here. This winter, plan a trip to Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Not only will you have the chance to catch their legendary perch, but this year, Hay Bale Heights has been catching big walleye after big walleye. And they're doing it from a mobile, comfortable snow bear. No matter how cold it is outside, you're warm and toasty on the inside. Learn more and book a trip today at haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. All right, we're back. Thanks for tuning in on this station on the Sporting Journal Radio Network or by downloading the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts, or maybe you're watching this on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, wherever. Thank you very much for doing so. If you like it, press the like button, press follow, share, subscribe to us, whatever. Check us out at sportingjournalradio.com. Maybe get yourself this cool hoodie like this one right here at sportingjournalradio.com. I hunt and always will. Hats, hoodies, mugs, and more. Dan Amundson with us as well. We're going to get you caught up with news around the region. Dan, they have new winter regs for Mille and Upper Red.
They sure do, and they're interesting. They're probably controversial like always, but we'll start with Mille. Mille, it's one walleye again, 21 to 23 inches. Takes effect December 1st through the rest of the walleye season. And then Red Lake, they're back up to 4. They dropped it to 3 last year. Now it's back up to 4 with 1 over 17. And that's really interesting to me. I don't know. I'm a little confused. I guess numbers show they can go back to 4, but why 1 year of having one less fish being harvested made that big of a difference, I'm not sure. But you can read more about that at sportingjournalradio.com. We have all that up there. You can have your own opinion. I don't know much of the science behind it. I just know what they are. Form your opinion. Let us know what you think, I guess, on what they are. Controversial topics, as always, especially around Mille, but you can read more at sportingjournalradio.com. But around the rest of the region, we'll go over to Wisconsin and stay with fish. This is something that growing up we've seen in crappies or something similar in crappies, and they just called it the Crappie Virus. Yeah. It was like a red mark on these fish. We weren't really sure what how it was affecting them, but apparently it's pretty common in western Wisconsin, but they're starting to see the same thing in bass, especially largemouth bass. But new is the fact that they found it in smallmouth bass in Door County. And you can kind of see that's what it looks like right there. They're not quite sure on the effects, what it exactly does, but they found it in a few smallmouth over there. They say it's pretty common in the Mississippi River Basin on largemouth. They're calling this one largemouth bass virus, but they now found it in smallmouth. So interesting stuff going on in the world of bass in Wisconsin. And then over to South Dakota, we talked about way back before waterfowl season started, we talked about the fact South Dakota was going to do that splash limit. You could shoot 3 ducks of any species, any gender, whatever it be. You could shoot 3 hen mallards, 3 whatever. But something came across on their Turn-In Poachers page that a group of 6 hunters shot 18 pintails. And they are saying it was a violation, so we have to be under the assumption that they didn't have that splash limit license. Because
that's a separate license that you have to buy.
Correct. So you have to choose when you buy that license. So part of me is wondering if there wasn't some confusion on if they thought, we could pick based on the day that today we could shoot, to say today we decided we only want to do 3 ducks as our limit, but you do that splash, and 6 guys shot 18 pintails, so 3 per person, when the limit is 1. It's 1 pintail in South Dakota there. So I'm wondering if there's some confusion. Maybe they were just poachers. I don't know. I don't really want to form an opinion on the situation, because I don't want to give poachers the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, part of me makes me wonder if there was just some confusion there in the world of the duck hunting of South Dakota. That's what we've got going on around the region.
Thank you, Dan. All right, like I said, you can send us pictures or videos from your exploits and adventures in the outdoor world. Cody Stuhog sent us some pictures from grouse hunting up in northern Minnesota. He's been doing pretty well. He's been finding plenty of birds up there. And what's really interesting, I think, is he's got a 15-week-old English pointer named Ace, and he has taken Ace on every hunt with him so far this year. And he says, he's kind of pointing birds. It's not quite perfect yet, but he's kind of doing it. And but it looks like he's a natural. There he is holding one of those grouse, and he's in the bottom of that photo, I know, right there too, down at the bottom of that hay bale. So he's been hunting out with them. So thank you very much for sending those in to us, Cody. We will hook you up with some free gear from the Sporting Journal Radio store that you can find out at sportingjournalradio.com. Right now, it's time to get a Lake of the Woods fishing report with Joe Henry. Welcome back. I'm Bret Amundson. Thanks for tuning in on this station right here by subscribing to the podcast, downloading it wherever you get your favorite podcasts, or listening on demand at sportingjournalradio.com, or maybe you're watching this on Facebook, YouTube, or one of our other social media platforms. Our mission here at this show is to make you not only a better hunter or angler, but also ensure a future for our hunters and anglers out there. I fish and always will. And one way to do that, of course, is to introduce new people into the outdoors, because the more people we have in the outdoors, the more power we have to make our laws and regulations, giving us the right to hunt and fish for generations to come. And we're going to talk about Lake of the Woods right now. Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism is joining us. And Joe, for people, I mean, obviously there are people out there now that are maybe interested in fishing, but they didn't grow up in a fishing family. They don't have that mentor. A lot of times it's just easier to go hire a guide. And Lake of the Woods would be a great place for somebody that doesn't know much about fishing to go learn about fishing, isn't it?
Absolutely. One thing to think about is, when we talk about, for instance, guides, when it comes to ice fishing up a Lake of the Woods, we're not trying to promote guides because it brings a lot more money into the area or anything like that. The neat thing about the resort community up a Lake of the Woods is they've realized that, if they market to a group of ice anglers, Bret, who already know what they're doing and have all the equipment, their sliver of the potential pie is very small. So if you market to people that are hardcore, as well as people that never go ice fishing, but if you can take the work away from ice fishing, if you can take the cold away, and if you can make it really enjoyable for just about anybody, well, now you really have some numbers. But the other thing that does is it opens it up to people who don't ice fish. It opens it up to families, to older people, to people who are disabled. I mean, it opens up to everybody. So the neat thing about Lake of the Woods right now in the resort community, they work so gall darn hard taking the work out of it. They're up at 4:30 in the morning driving trails and ice roads on the ice. They're firing up the bombers and the other ice equipment that they use and taking people out and cleaning their paths. They're doing a lot of things behind the scenes to make life easy. Imagine waking up in the morning, having a great breakfast at a resort. At 8 o'clock or maybe 7:30 in the morning, you jump aboard their ice transportation. And then they're going to take you out to a heated fish house that's on the fish. You enjoy your day. You fish all day with your friends and family or whomever you're with. You having good snackies. You might even have a cocktail or two. And then at about 4:30, when the sun starts going down, they take you and your bucket of fish, they bring in for happy hour, and they even clean your fish for you. Heck, if you want, the resort will even cook up your fresh catch. Mm-hmm. So they really make it easy. And that's the name of the game. That's what's going to make people come back. I have to explain to people all the time, gosh, I wouldn't want to go ice fishing. It sounds so cold. Yeah. I have to explain to them that, actually go down in a boat. The adversity
that's a lot colder. Yeah.
It is a lot colder than a boat, isn't it?
Yeah.
You go in that fish house, that's like a living room. It's 70 degrees or whatever temp you want it. It's a controlled environment. If it's a snowstorm outside, heck, you're driving out in heated comfort right to the door of the fish house. It's just a neat deal, and it does open it up to just about everybody.
Yeah, I've told that story many times on the show. One of the first times I went up to Lake of the Woods, and I figured northern Minnesota, it's cold. We're going ice fishing. I dressed way too warm because I just sweated my way out there in that bomber and then sat in, 70 degrees in the fish house, whatever, all day out there. And by the end of the day, I was stripped down to a T-shirt and jeans and, catching a bunch of fish. So, yeah, it's not, obviously you're going to be out in the elements, so you want to have a jacket with and some boots. My boots would probably be the one thing I would say you want to make sure you have, because the feet can get, the floor can get a little cold sometimes in those fish houses, but yeah, it's not cold generally overall. Yeah,
and most people are going out, I'll never forget. It was really funny. I was having breakfast with some friends, and we were watching people board bombardiers and a bunch of young guys. What do you think everyone had in each hand?
Well, a case of beer probably in one hand.
Yep, that's one. And the other one was their bucket. And their bucket had their tackle, their electronics, their ice fishing electronics, and their sticks, the rods.
Yeah. Well,
but what else do you need? You throw a sweatshirt on with jeans and a pair of boots. You got a nice warm jacket for the ride out. You got gloves and a hat just in case something would happen, if the bomber would break down or something. And then it's precaution always. And then, but gosh, you get in the fish house, first thing you do is hang your jacket up.
That's exactly what happens. I usually hang it over the window. to darken it up in there just a little bit. You showed a picture earlier too of some of the rigs that they use earlier in the year, maybe pulling skid houses. Here's a little tip. If you have a sidekick or a tracker and you want to sell it and make the most money, bring it to Lake of the Woods and sell it up there.
Well, I tell you, supply and demand. The resort community up there has realized that the Geo trackers, Suzuki Samurais, the sidekicks, whatever, they're light, they're small, and they're bulletproof. Now, that's what he's showing right now is not a light ice rig. That is a heavy ice rig. That's a track rig, but something totally different. But a light ice rig, what it is, it's a Geo tracker that pulls a trailer, and they call it a light ice rig. It pulls a trailer that's a people mover trailer, and it's a heated trailer. The Geo tracker is very light. The parts are very accessible, so if something breaks on it, it's not hard to fix it. They can find parts for it. It just works so darn good. There you go. The problem is that, because everybody uses them now, they're hard to find. But they do such a nice job for light ice. And quite honestly, a lot of the resorts during the year will use them all throughout the year and just drive on the plowed roads with them, taking people back and forth. Some resorts, they'll say, hey, if you want to drive your own vehicle when the ice is thick enough out to the fish house, you can drive your own vehicle and come and go as you please. But with that being said, there are still a few that still would rather get transported out and picked up, and they might even use those light ice rigs for that. And then, of course, Brett, as ice gets thicker, we talked about the bombardiers, and really a bomber it's a track rig. They used to build them in Valcourt, Quebec, and they actually built them for public transportation, for taking kids to school. It was like a public bus, And then what happened was back in the 70s, what happened was up in that province, they passed an ordinance that said, all right, we're going to start plowing the roads from now on. Well, once they said they're going to plow the roads, there wasn't as much of a need for the bombers, and they quit making them back in the 70s. Now, Lake of the Woods resorts, they've tried all sorts of different contraptions up on the ice, but that darn bombardier just proves to be such a good deal. A lot of people will take a normal bomber, and what they can do is they can put a stretch kit on it. They can stretch that bomber out, so now it'll hold 12 people and all their gear. And then not only that, the bomber just works so good because those tracks are really, really long, and it floats over any kind of cracks on the ice. It's real good because it displaces that weight so nicely. If you have, you've seen those track kits, Brett, that you put on like an SUV or a pickup truck
oh yeah,
on the wheels?
Yep.
One of the problems we realize with those is that they're a small footprint. So if you come up to a crack, they can get caught in a crack and they can break them and get stuck and whatever else. With this long skis in the front and those long tracks of a bomber, that can float right over just about anything. And again, it displaces that weight nicely. So, for people traveling to the Northwest Angle this year, you can drive through Canada as long as you're vaccinated and have an active COVID test that's negative. But one of the ways to get up there this year, of course, is the Lake of the Woods passenger service. And that's that passenger service they used this summer that was charter boats. They do the same thing in the winter with bombardiers. So they'll take you via bomber all the way up to the Northwest Angle, 42 miles. And that way you can stay in Minnesota and not have to go through customs. So it's kind of a neat deal.
Yeah, those bombers are iconic. I remember the first time I ice fished up there, I just wanted to ride out in a bomber. That was kind of the highlight of the trip. Obviously, catching walleyes is a big part of it too. But just riding out in those bombers is something everybody that ice fishes in Minnesota should do. And Joe, if they want to plan a trip to Lake of the Woods this winter, what should they do?
Hey, it's a good time to book right now, man. Get the dates you want. Best thing to do, check out our website and check out our lodging page on our website. Our website is Lake of the Woods, MN for Minnesota, lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
852 million acres of public land, 147 million private properties.
All in the palm of your hand. The #1 hunting GPS app just got better. With hundreds of custom map layers, 3D and topographic maps, you can easily scout on the road or at home before you go. And now you can get important weather details, CWD detection, and even know what crops have been planted where. Get the most trusted hunting GPS app ever made. OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. All right, welcome to the show. I'm Bret Amundson. Thanks for tuning in on this station right here, downloading the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts, or watching this on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, wherever. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe and follow button. And if you like what you're watching, share it with your friends. We're talking the unofficial state bird, the ruffed grouse, today. And our guests are Ben Brettingen from OnX, also Matt Soberg from Covey Rise, and Jared Olafson from the Lake of the Woods chapter of the Ruffed Grouse Society. Gentlemen, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Thanks for coming on the show.
Fantastic.
Ben, I want to start with you, actually. When you were looking forward to this year's grouse hunting season in particular, say in Minnesota or Wisconsin, kind of this general region, were you looking forward to it as compared to the last couple of seasons?
Yeah, we're definitely on the down cycle right now, but if you put in the work, you can find the birds, right? If the habitat's there, in my experience, it negates some of that. So, and at the end of the day, we're still on the high part of the cycle. So yeah, I was very much looking forward to spending some time in the grouse woods.
Matt, what about you? When it came to this season, were you looking forward to it? I mean, you're always looking forward to it, right?
Yeah, for sure. My initial thoughts were, with drought reports out west affecting birds, and it was pretty dry here too, and I didn't really know how that affected the spring nesting and breeding and everything. That's always kind of a gamble. You don't know how that's all going to shake out after the biologists do the drumming counts a little bit before that. So you don't really know what the season's going to be like till you get in the woods. But that's kind of the beauty of it. You get out there, get the dogs out running, try to find some birds, and then you can kind of get a handle on where you feel everything's at least in the covers that you hunt.
Dan, can you bring that picture back up once again? That was a pretty cool picture, Matt. Did you actually rough up those feathers like that for the picture? No,
that was just the natural rough of that bird.
Cool.
And it was a younger male too. Actually, it just had one of the biggest roughs I've ever seen in a bird, and that was up. I just bought a 40 with some pretty good habitat on it this last year, and actually that was the first bird I shot on my own piece of property up by Pine River.
That's awesome. That's way cool.
Pretty cool.
Cool picture and a neat story too. And the drought affected a lot of things, of course, in recent weeks and the last month or so. I suppose we've had quite a bit of rain and even a little bit of snow. Jared, I know you did some walking in the snow recently on the Star of the North Trail. How was that hunt?
It was very fun. Woke up when it was snowing a little bit here. We decided to grouse hunt, and by the time you got down to the state forest, there was about an inch on the ground. So the grouse were holding pretty tight. The dog had to work a little bit, but it was a nice day to be in the woods.
Tell us more about that trail that you were on.
The Star of the North Trail is a dream of our local chapter. We started building some walking trails for hunters up here. And up here, there's a lot of ATVs, there's a lot of UTVs. So we wanted to make some more all-inclusive type trails. And what we came up with is the Star of the North. When we're all said and done, it'll be about 72 miles of trail. Some will be ATVs, some you can grab a vehicle on. The bulk of it will be hunter walking trails.
We've got pictures of that trail too, Dan, and P1 and P2 week 478 if you can find them, but maybe you can pull them up later in the show. But you've actually spent a lot of time not only walking and hunting on that trail, but you spent a lot of time working on that trail.
Absolutely. We do trail work every year whenever conditions allow. This summer we were able to do some because of the drought. Things are a little drier. A bulk of our trail work gets done in the early spring when it's frozen, and then we go in the fall and get them ready for hunting season.
Matt, because that trail's not that old, right?
No, we've only been working on it about 4 years.
Yeah, that's right. Matt, weren't you with RGS when that whole thing took place?
Yep. I know a little bit about it. Jared and the chapter up there had really done an excellent job with that trail. It's innovative in a way. They came up with the idea and put in all the hard work, and not a lot of chapters are doing that. And I think it's really an excellent project, from the funding, from the actual work on the ground, and then what it does for the future of access and hunter recruitment for grouse hunting and things like that, to create that much trail that's with a lot of walk-in only type trails into really good habitat, it's really pretty phenomenal.
How long is that trail?
Right now we have about 40 miles done.
Okay.
So we are cruising along quite nice.
And there's plans to expand it then?
Yes, to get the full loop, we need to do 70 miles or 72 and change. So we have a little bit farther to go.
And that's open to hunting.
Open to hunting, and there's people that fat tire bike on it just for exercise. There's people that run on it and bird watch on it. So it's kind of an all-purpose trail. But come fall, there's a lot of birds on it.
I bet. Non-motorized?
Non-motorized, yeah. The walking sections are really, they go through some prime habitat. And the DNR has worked with us as well for doing some cleanup cuts and some logging to stimulate that new growth on sections of our trail. So it's been pretty good.
I want to discuss logging a little bit later in the show and how important that is. But Matt, let's go back to you for just a minute, because I want to talk about all three of you had some pretty neat recent hunts, and I want to talk to all three of you about that. And Matt, you were sharing some pictures of, you were with Covey Rise. You had some of the guys from Covey Rise up?
Yeah, it was a fun hunt. It was John Timms, who's the Covey Rise publisher, and then Terry Allen, the well-known photographer, and then Gil Morgan, a guy that works with Covey Rise as well. The interesting thing was Terry and Gil are from Georgia, and John is from Alabama.
Oh boy!
And Terry and Gil have hunted grouse and wood. Yeah, it was interesting. Terry and Gil have hunted grouse and woodcock up in Canada, but it was the first time that John ever got to do it, and it was sort of on his bucket list. So we rented a little house on a lake up north and spent 4 days just hitting it hard. My dogs got a workout, but we found some birds, got those guys on some birds, brought a few home, and it was a great hunt.
Real quick, just tell us about Covey Rise.
Yeah, Covey Rise is a upland hunting lifestyle magazine. We are now celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year, which is pretty phenomenal in the world of print magazines. We feature. Some people think it's just only bobwhite quail, but that's not true. We feature all different types of wild bird species and feature places and people and shotguns and art and food and bourbon and cigars, all the things that we like to do, from hunting in the field to what you like to do to celebrate after as well.
I got food, bourbon, cigars, bird hunting. And you must have either a picnic table that looks like barnwood or just like some barnwood that you stage photographs on, it looks like, because they're cool pictures.
I do. Yeah, I do every once in a while. There's out west, there's a couple little buildings. I mean, you know what it's like when you drive around some of those gravel roads out there. You find some of those old houses and the old barns, and they're just picture perfect for setting up some photos.
Absolutely. Ben, I want you to tell the story of your recent hunt too, because you hunted with George Lyle, and he told me that it's one of the best days he's had in the grouse woods in many years.
Yeah, it was a great trip. I'd been up in that area before, and the habitat was phenomenal. A lot of good timber cuts in that, probably 2010 to 2014 range. And I was just like, heck, George, let's go up there and give it a shot. And walked in on a trail, and George was like, I have a feeling, let's bail off in the woods. And we went bushwhacking for the next 4 hours, and it was fantastic. Just great habitat, just a perfect mosaic of some tall aspen, spruce, just that kind of perfect classic grouse habitat, and swamp edges, all that good stuff. And I think, we hunted till probably from about 9 to noon and moved 26 birds and a handful of woodcock. And it was just fantastic. George was coming off a trip to Wisconsin where he was having a hard time with the shotgun. So I've never seen George that amped up to go kill grouse.
Really?
And so he came out swinging, and we were able, I think, to get 5 down by noon. So
5 down by noon,
which was, yeah.
He's a pretty good shot. That surprises me.
Yeah, he had the whole laundry list of excuses from his glasses, blah blah blah. But I think he just needed the confidence back. So always a great time. He has got some just unreal
The dogs.
pointers. So I love hunting with Boone and Tuck and Minnie. It's just always a pleasure. And George is such a fun person to be around. So I love to spend every second in the field with him. So
that's what's fun about hunting with him. I mean, even if birds are getting missed, you get to see his dogs work. And I duck hunted with him and Minnie a couple of times earlier this year. And I'm becoming a bigger fan of English Cocker Spaniels every time I'm around them. I thought about getting one this year. And then after watching him work Minnie on those ducks even this year, I'm even a bigger fan. And you had a pretty interesting story with Minnie catching a live grouse on this trip.
Yeah. So, yeah, we had got out and Tucker, we were running Tucker, Amos, my dog, and then Minnie. Tucker went on point, I think, like at 120 yards. And I was just looking at the map and it's like, oh, this is a clear cut. It said it was like 2015 or something like that. And walk in there and Tucker is just, boom, locked up on point. And it's like, okay, cool. This is kind of weird. It's probably going to be a woodcock because it was fairly sparse and there was a bunch of grass in there. It's like, yeah, this is definitely going to be a woodcock. And George went to go release him because Minnie had been running all over the place through there. It's like, there's nothing here. And he wouldn't move, when a pointing dog has one pinned right there. And he was just like, he wouldn't even hardly move his eyes. And so Minnie was rooting around and all of a sudden, boom, just hammers right into this, like a clump of grass. It couldn't have been more than knee high, not even thick. And there's this grouse she comes out with, like beautiful tail fanned out, and just brings it to George. It's like, I've seen it with roosters, but I've never seen it with grouse before. So that was kind of funny. So at that point, that was 0 shots fired and 1 grouse in the bag.
He probably trained Minnie to do that after missing so many while he was in Wisconsin. Let's be honest.
I didn't even think about that. I got to tell him that.
Ben, this is you've got a pointer. Is this your first pointer?
So yeah, this is my first pointer. I've got two drought hards, which are pointing dogs, but I guess you could say this is my first official true pointing dog.
Did you grow up with labs though?
Nope. So I actually grew up with short hairs.
Oh, you did?
So
okay.
Yep. So I've always been a pointer guy, but I've hunted behind a number of labs in my life as well.
I was going to say, I think a lot of guys that have labs that start to do more upland hunting become pointer owners eventually. I don't know how many times I've thought about going to a pointer, but I like labs so much it's going to be hard to do it. But pointers are fun to hunt behind. I guess I like the challenge of trying to shoot them further away, I think is my problem.
Well, for me, I went from a pointing dog to an even more pointing dog. And to be honest, I don't know if I'll probably catch some hate from this, but there's pointers and then there's setters like that. Even I love my draughts, but they're just, those pointers and setters are in a different class of their own. In my experience, watching what they can do, they're just specialty built for that one purpose, bird hunting. So they're naturally good at it.
Matt, what do you got for dogs these days?
Ben, I just want to let you know I'll back you up on your statement there. So I got your back. I have 3 setters right now. So my oldest dog is 10 already. And then I have a 4-year-old, and then I got a pup that I brought. Well, it's not a puppy anymore. He's 1 year now, just turned 1. But I got him in Montana last year when I was up there. So
yeah, that wasn't really planned, was it?
No, I was out there actually on a magazine story, and it was really cool. I got to hunt with this trainer, and he had just had a litter of puppies, and so I saw these puppies for like 4 days straight, and played with the puppies for that long of a time, which was kind of unique and cool. And then I also got to watch both of his parents hunt for like 3 days straight, and so, man, he had this puppy for sale, and I didn't even tell my wife, but I paid him the money and I brought the dog home. I didn't decide to text her until I texted her a picture of the new present I was bringing home, but I was like halfway back from Montana already by the time I told her.
What did she say?
this isn't the first time I've pulled this on her, so she's pretty used to it. It's just one of those things. So
that's hilarious. And you're still married?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Luckily, yeah. She's pretty patient. That's for sure.
That's funny. Jared, that picture that you shared, you have a yellow lab. Is that what I saw in that photo?
Yeah, British Red Lab.
Oh, it's a British Red. Okay. All right. How do you like those dogs?
Actually, this is my first British Red. I love it. That week that we grouse hunting prior to that, we did a pheasant hunt at a pheasant farm Saturday morning, and then grouse hunt or duck hunted Saturday night, and right into grouse hunting Sunday morning. So, and multi-purpose. Yeah,
that's what I love about labs. So versatile. What male, female? What's the dog's name? How old?
Male. Ole, and he had just turned 2 that day when we went grouse hunting. So.
Ole, nice. All right, very cool. And they're a little smaller. And is he a quiet dog? Because they're known to be a little bit quieter too, aren't they?
Yeah, very. He's 2 years old, but he acts like he's 9. So he's calm, and when you take him on the field, he's jacked up and ready to go. But you come back home and he lays around. He's quiet, good with the kids. So he was a good choice. And
that's usually the exact opposite for labs that you hear. No, he's 9, but he acts like he's 2. He's
right.
Kind of loud and rambunctious.
That's all my previous labs were like that.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a nice thing about Tiny is she's small and she's pretty quiet. I mean, she's got these little noises that crack me up every once in a while. She gets excited and makes these little whiny noises that sometimes it drives me crazy, but sometimes I can't help but laugh at her when she does it because they're just hilarious coming out of that little dog. And then sometimes if there's coyotes howling outside, she will wake you up out of a dead sleep and you'll think the house is on fire. Like it's the meanest, loudest, scariest growling bark howl that I've heard a dog make. And coming out of that little pup is kind of hilarious when you see that. Matt, I want to come back to you for a second. Ben kind of touched on it when we talk about the cycle and ruffed grouse go through this population cycle. Where are we at right now? And when you look at the cycle and where we're at, is that what you're seeing? Is that displaying what you're seeing in the woods right now as far as grouse numbers?
Yeah. Ben and Jared, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're supposed to be on the downward curve of the cycle. And so, but the last few years, I think the last 3 or 4 years have been a little different. It's almost like it's, at least anecdotally over the last few years, it seems like it's kind of evening out a little bit. It hasn't been recently as drastic as it has in the past. Now, I'm a barstool biologist. I'm not a scientist or anything, but anecdotally applying that to what I'm seeing in the field this year, it seems like I'm seeing a few more birds than I did last year, actually, at least just in my areas in central Minnesota. But Well, that's what I've been seeing so
honestly,
far.
I've been hearing that from a lot of people. That's why I wanted to ask you guys all that question. And Jared and Ben, you guys can weigh on this too if you want to, because I've been hearing and getting messages and pictures from a number of guys around the state, in the northern half of the state that have been out there chasing grouse around a little bit. Even when there were leaves on the trees, they were shooting birds. And I'm like, what is happening right now? Like, because I'm Ben or Matt, if you remember when we hunted, gosh, I suppose was that 2018 when we hunted with Hank up there?
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't believe it's been that long ago now already. Our grouse hunt that we filmed for Prairie Sportsman turned into a woodcock hunt. And obviously hunts can do that no matter what year it is. But it seems like numbers are better this year.
Yeah. There's so many other factors that go along with it too. We touched on it a little bit earlier. The springtime weather, based on when that comes, can have such a profound effect on hatches and the young birds you'll see in the fall and all of those things. So if everything works out in that, late May, early June timeframe, when all of that's happening, you can, the fall numbers might not show exactly what was predicted in the spring when they do the drumming counts, because that's all totally different. And there's so much that goes into it,
Well, what year was that they put out the drumming counts here in Minnesota and everyone was jacked because it was way up. And then I think we had a hailstorm in June or something like that. Yeah. And numbers were not good that fall.
Yeah, and if that happens during that specific time frame, I think we also had some like straight line winds, some big windstorms that came through that were pretty tough on wildlife around here. So all that can kind of affect that. And again, like I said, you never really know what you're going to see until you get out there. But that's sort of the flip side of it, is sort of the beauty of it as well. So.
All right, guys, I want to transition a little bit into some tips for other hunters that may be going out there, whether it be for the first time of the year or just planning on going back out, even this weekend. Jared, are you a deer hunter too?
Absolutely. But northern Minnesota, what are you going to do?
That's right. It's almost law in this state, I think. What do you recommend if you're not deer hunting, if you want to grouse hunt, just to stay out of the woods this weekend?
No. With the trail systems that we have in place and the loops we have in place, there's plenty of room for deer hunters to be out there, and there's plenty of room for the grouse hunters to join them. So if it's a nice weekend, I'd get out there. Is there much trapping that goes on up in your neck of the woods? There's not a lot. There's a lot more in the winter, especially for beaver along the rivers. But right now, there's not a lot going on.
So you don't worry about traps too much up where you're at?
No, I don't worry about traps too much. Come winter, if we're doing late season grouse hunting and we're specifically along the river bottom, I'll be a little more cognizant of it. But right now, it's not an issue.
Do any of you guys carry tools with you? Ben and Matt both nodding out there. Ben, what do you bring with you just to make sure that if your dog is caught in a body grip trap, that you're able to try to free him quickly?
So in terms of a body grip trap, I'm not as concerned with, because I can generally do that by hand. What really gets me is like snares. Like that's what's going to do it. So like with a body grip trap, I'm proficient enough. I've trapped. I feel comfortable to do that by hand and get a dog out. But, I suggest I always bring like a bolt cutter or a cable cutter with me, because that snare is, if you don't have that with you, there's no way you're going to get that dog out of it by your hand. Where with the body grip or a conibear, you can actually manipulate that by hand for the most part, or step on it. So
yeah, they basically just tell you to bring like a zip tie, right, to wrap around one of the sides there. You crank her down and wrap it around to hold it open.
Yeah, and I've got zip ties, and I've done it enough. Unless it's a really big one, generally I can do it by hand.
So walk us through that. So say someone's out there trying to trap coyotes or something, and your dog gets caught in one of those snares. What do you do?
So snares, it's kind of the time is of the essence, right? And another big thing is how you train your dog. So with the system I use, pressure around the neck means, all right, stop. Like don't move. That's just from e-collar overlay. So generally, I like to think, and who knows what happens, but generally, hopefully they stop, because the more they fight it, the tighter it gets. So if you're going to go up to it, and that's why I think running, especially on pointing dogs, a GPS collar is worth its weight in gold. And for me, it's paid for itself 100 times over the last, 10 years. So essentially you have to get up to it, and you have to have that good cable cutter and just get under there and snip that. Just like that photo, I've got almost an identical one in the bottom right corner. So
unfortunately, go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say, because, it's showing you how to unlock it by hand. And I can imagine in the heat of the moment, I don't want to be trying to fool with it, have a dog. I've pulled porcupine quills out of a dog, and trying to, like a 50-pound dog, you think you can hold that dog still? No, it's hard. So that cable cutters go under there and just snip it, and you're done with it. So
I'm fortunate I don't run into too many traps out here in the prairie. Occasionally guys are out there working on coyotes, but a lot of times it's after I'm done pheasant hunting anyway. But Matt, have you ever seen a trap out there when you've been running your dogs?
Yeah, I've seen some traps. Luckily, I haven't had any, horrifying accidents or stories that you do sometimes hear. I carry a snips like Ben, and then they make some other tools as well. There's a aluminum release that's probably 8 to 10 inches long that actually it's really, really light and it fits in your vest. I carry one of those, and I try to kind of pay attention to the trapping dates and everything, just to be aware of when they might be out there and everything. But, at the same time, I support trapping and I support trappers, and I believe that's an important thing for all of us to work together in the future too. So
for sure,
when it comes to that stuff, I think there's a place for all of us. And so as long as you're prepared and you know what you're up to, you know where you're at, I don't really worry about it too much myself.
I mean, that's number one. You just have to know going in, and sometimes I think that's one of those maybe limiting factors for getting new people out there. They get worried about this or that or whatever. They don't know how to do it. But being prepared and knowing what you may run into in dog safety it's got to be number one out there, whether it's from, gunfire or from, traps, just getting cut up on barbed wire or logs or sticks. You guys all carry some sort of medical kit with you too for your dogs?
Yep,
100%.
Jared, what do you carry in yours while you're out there?
I've got just about everything I need. I carry it dual purpose actually for my dog, but I usually have kids. I like to bring our kids, neighborhood kids out as well, and things happen in the woods. So it's an inclusive kit that is going to serve dual purpose. I haven't had to use it yet, and I hope I never have to, but it never hurts to have it in your back.
Yeah, for sure. I know grouse numbers seem to be a little bit better this year, but in recent years haven't been the greatest. And every time somebody has a bad day or they have a bad season, you'll see comments on social media, different Facebook groups, whatever, about lowering limits. And honestly, that goes for anything: waterfowl, walleyes, whatever. What do you guys think about where the ruffed grouse limit, or even Sharpie limit for that matter? What do you think about the limits where we're at right now? And maybe Ben, maybe I can start with you. And you hunt in different states for different upland birds. What do you see out there, and how do you think we do here in Minnesota when it comes to limits?
Yeah, we're talking for ruffed grouse. I think we have a very generous limit. And if you can shoot 5 birds in a day, hey, good. More power to you. Like, go to town, because I can maybe count on one hand, if that, on how many days I've shot 5. So, for me, if they said, all right, you can only shoot 3 grouse, I wouldn't really care, because for me, it's more about, getting out and seeing good dog work and that kind of thing. So if they lowered it to 3, that's fine. But, I've got a stick in my craw about when, you talk about bad numbers and people not wanting to get out. And I just say, like, I mean, frankly, just kind of hell with that. Like, there's granted, you talk about the swings, for example, like you talk about maybe a drum count of, at a low year, is 0.7 per stop, 0.7 drums per stop, versus at a high of the cycle, maybe 2. And so that's not that big of a swing, really. I mean, if you find bird habitat, you can always find birds, in my experience. So, people complaining, oh, I don't hunt from 2005 or whatever. It's like, no, they're out there. You just have to, you have to be able to identify better habitat and get more dialed in. So that's my tangent.
Well, since we're talking about tangents and regulations, and the gun deer season is opening up in Minnesota, how do you feel about season dates in Minnesota for the deer season?
I think at this point, if it wasn't for tradition, I think they should change it. I think they should change it anyways.
Yeah.
I've hunted countless dates for deer, and as a person, like, my personal beef with it is it cuts our grouse season off by a couple weeks versus like Wisconsin. But I put that poll up on my Instagram, and of the 1,000 some people that responded, overwhelmingly, I think it was 92% of people wanted deer season moved back.
Yeah.
For one reason or another, whether it's so they can bow hunt through the rut, for QDMA, deer age, making 80% now. So Whether it's for quality deer management, but I would personally love to see it move to even a week later would make a huge difference in terms of pursuing quality deer. And in terms of the harvest, I don't know. I'm not a biologist either, so I don't know what it would do for harvest numbers, but I'd love to see it changed.
I really should get more involved in the gun deer season, particularly here in Minnesota. I don't think I've ever hunted with a gun in Minnesota. It's always been bows. I grew up rifle hunting in Wisconsin during that Thanksgiving 9-day season. But even then I pretty much just bow hunt now. So it's not really a factor for me, but I'll tell you what, like the week before the gun, like this week has been the week to be bow hunting. Like all of a sudden this week, there's deer movement all over the place. The crops have come down. The rut's kicking in. I'm excited. And now Saturday, it's all going to change again. Deer are going to be running for their lives. Stuff's going to go nocturnal. And so I would like a little bit more time to bow hunt personally, but that's just my 2 cents. And I don't know if any of you guys want to weigh in on this. Ben, we'll stay with you right now since we're talking about it. But I'm going to say something maybe a little controversial, maybe not. I don't know if I'm a fan of the 4-day youth deer season in Minnesota. I feel like 4 days of guns going off around MEA. That's a lot of guns going off at deer right now in a lot of areas, pushing deer around. And it did have an effect on deer movement. Now it's come back a little bit here this last week. It hasn't been so bad, but you know, with all these youth seasons, are they making a big difference in recruitment? And I'd be curious to find that out if it's actually working, or if it is making some of the regular seasons, at least the openers, a little less successful. And that we can save that topic for a different show. That's my tangent. I wanted to go off for a minute, I guess, Ben.
Yeah, and you know, I don't know. That's a great question, and that's a lot to unpack. But yeah. You know, for me personally, as soon as deer season opens up, I'm out of the grouse woods 100%. You know, we get all of, you know, half of September or whatever, all of October. I don't want to go screw up somebody's hunt. I don't want to have my dog shot. I don't want to be shot. So I stay out of the grouse woods in Minnesota. I'll go over to Wisconsin or go out to South Dakota and go bird hunt out there, but I'll give deer hunters at least that first weekend to just go do their own thing. Maybe during the week I could sneak out, but I've had some bad experiences in the past, and I just said not worth it.
Yeah, I don't like losing some pheasant days too to all those gun hunters pushing the WMAs and the public lands around here. A lot of times, if I am out there, I throw an orange vest on my dog. Just if nothing else, for some peace of mind for myself. And I want to talk about the future with you guys before we wrap things up here in a couple of minutes. I want to talk about the future of hunting in general, but grouse hunting. And while I think that some of these youth hunting opportunities are great, and maybe have had an impact in some people, and it's all, let me be clear. I always take kids out and introduce them to the outdoors. I'm not trying to say don't do that. That doesn't mean you can't, just because we have a youth opener, it doesn't mean you can't do it during the regular season. And I think there should be more people doing it during the regular season. If it's so important to you about introducing kids to the outdoors, take them out the second week of the season, the third, take them out every day. So I just want to be clear about that. But I think one of the most important aspects of hunter recruitment and retention is more about land access and giving people a chance to hunt. And when you look at hunter numbers declining over the years, you could say maybe there was just a heyday in actual public hunting, because I mean, if you look at the history of the DNR, it only goes back, 100 years almost. So when you look at license sales and you see a peak there, are we going down because there's less people hunting, or did we have a peak there? That's a debate for another show. But what's changed is that all those people that used to hunt in the 70s and 80s, there was either a lot of public land, or everybody just, you want to go hunt? Yeah, go ahead. Go pass shoot on my pond and back, or whatever. Go push my grove for deer. It's all changed now. So much private land has gotten locked up that there's more reliance on public land. And then when you pull up into a parking area and somebody else is parked there, now you got to go somewhere else. It gets a little frustrating. So that land access, I think, is one of the most important parts of recruitment. Now, Tom Landwehr did come on the show here last week, or 2 weeks ago, I guess, and said, hey, we got 12 million acres of public water that you can go duck hunting on. So there is still quite a bit of public. And Minnesota is, I think, fairly unique when it comes to land access. We have quite a bit of it around here. But Ben, Ben, coming back to what OnX is doing, what are they doing right now to increase public land access and hunter access right now?
Yeah, so that's a big founding principle of the company is the access and stewardship initiatives we're doing, and a lot of that is we've talked about it in prior shows, but like our pretty much access program, so allowing people to access landlocked pieces of property. We put out reports for all county or all regions of the country, essentially showing how much land is landlocked. And then so we're working on a lot of projects. So we'll work with Pheasants Forever, we'll work with RMEF, trying to open up these larger pieces. And by doing that, by picking these strategic areas, it's not just buying a 40 acre that's in the middle of nowhere. It's a 40 acre piece that might open up another 2,000 acres. Or you talk about out west, it might open up another 10,000 acres, that kind of thing. So we continue to work on that and work with a lot of the conservation organizations to continue to open up property and also to improve it for whatever type of game you're pursuing on it.
And that's important, to open up land that's already there, that's already public land. We just can't get to it. That's important. But Jared, when we've got some of that public land and we want to create better public land, how important is that conservation work in the future of, to the future of hunting?
Very important. I'm a proponent of public land. I do a lot of my hunting on public land. The more we can open up, I think it's a brighter future. You look at northern Minnesota where we have our trails. Beltrami Island State Forest is thousands and thousands of acres. You can go days without seeing anybody when you're grouse hunting, and I think that embodies what us as hunters want, is that public land.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, keep up the good work up there. And when it comes to habitat, obviously creating habitat is important. And Matt, I know we've probably talked about this in shows in the past, but how important is logging when it comes to wildlife habitat?
It's absolutely essential. And that's one of the biggest communications and messaging battles that we've fought forever. We've never... conservation organizations or the hunting public never really been good at convincing the public or legislators or the people who change policy for us that actually cutting trees is a good thing. What we need for healthy wildlife populations, whether it's deer, turkeys, ruffed grouse, woodcock, songbirds, is we need healthy forests. We can't just have old growth forests. That supports certain types of wildlife, but it doesn't support the species like ruffed grouse and woodcock that require the young forests that actually regenerate after we do clear cuts and things. So like you see a picture of a clear cut day one, it looks pretty ugly on the landscape. And that's everything that you see the environmentalists and the anti logging industry. That's what they want to point out. But you go back to that exact same spot 3 or 5 years later, and it looks totally different. That's where all the wildlife are. And so that's just the message that we need to continue to put forward as much as possible. It's a tough one, but it's absolutely necessary, especially for future populations of grouse.
Oh, it might even see some more moose on the landscape too.
Yeah, exactly.
And to piggyback off what Matt was saying, one of the worst things for biodiversity is old growth forests. Mm-hmm. Like, a young aspen cut or something that's 20 years old is going to hold way more game. And the problem with old growth is it ends up just deteriorating, right? Maybe a few deer wander through there, but even with deer hunting, you look at aspen cuts, clear cuts, like that is prime bedding area. So it's not just supporting grouse, it's supporting a whole host of biodiversity. So it's just something that I think we just need to get the message out, because as a conservationalist, that's important.
Well, to ensure we have a future in the outdoors, whether it be hunting, fishing, whatever, there's a couple of things I think we need to make sure we have in that: suitable habitat, that's land access, and that's people that care about it. So how do we get all those? You volunteer to do some of that conservation work. You go out there and introduce people, and you find ways to get onto some of that public land by having an OnX membership, of course. You join local organizations and chapters like Ruffed Grouse Society, and all these conservation organizations, they're the ones doing a lot of the legwork at the Capitol with the government, and that's where we have strength to make sure that we have our rights to go out and hunt and fish. So there's strength in numbers, so join a conservation organization, subscribe to Covey Rise magazine as well. We'll plug all three of them there, gentlemen, and just get out there and do it, and introduce new people to do it, and have fun while you're doing it. That's the most important. So Matt Soberg, Jared Olafson, and Ben Brettingen, thanks for the time today, and good luck the rest of the season for you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Bret. See you guys.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.